Hello from Halifax. This is Jo with Jo to the World Creations, and today we're going to be making my beach bag crochet pattern. I'm really excited to share this crochet beach bag pattern with you, and we're going to be getting right to the video tutorial. All of the details, such as how much yarn you'll need, the exact colors I've used, which crochet hook size to use, and the step-by-step written instructions, they're all available for free on my website, or you can purchase the ad-free, print-ready PDF, and there are links to both in the description below this video. The written instructions has all the yarn that I've used, the exact color that I've used for the main color, the bottom stripe, the middle stripe, top stripe. Please refer to the written instructions for all of those details. For this video tutorial, I'm using this green color as my main color. So that might be a little confusing, and I'm sorry, I ran out of this color yarn when making this video. So I'm treating this green color as my main color, but again, all the details for the actual main color that I used in my beach bag can be found in the written instructions. So as I just mentioned, I'm going to be using this green color as my main color. So pick whatever color you'd like to be your main color. And we're going to be starting with the bottom and using this main color for the entire bottom and for a little bit of the body. And so keep using this main color until instructed to change colors. For this pattern, we are going to be using 2 strands of yarn held together the entire time. So with your 2 skeins, you just take strands from each of them and you treat them as you would as if you were crocheting with just 1 strand. And I'll show you exactly how to do this as we get started. So with 2 strands held together, we're going to start by making a slip knot. There's lots of different ways. I make my slip knot by making a loop and then pulling through another loop, tightening it up and putting that loop onto my hook. And always making sure I have an approximate 8-inch tail. And with these 2 strands together, you just simply treat them like one. And it's okay if they cross a little bit. They don't need to be absolutely lined all the time. The point is to create a thicker fabric. So if your strands cross and are not perfectly always straight and parallel, that's absolutely okay. You just treat them as 1 strand and crochet normally. With our slip knot now made, we are going to chain 31. 1, 2, 3. And do you see how my strands are getting a little bit crossed? And that's absolutely okay. You just go ahead and do this for the whole pattern. So I've made 3, 4, and I'm going to keep going until I have 31 chains made. So you can come back to the video when you have 31 chains complete. With 31 chains now made, we're going to begin round 1. And we're going to start round 1 by working into the 2nd chain from the hook. So I just removed my hook. The 1st chain from the hook is right here. So the 2nd chain is the next chain. And we're going to insert our hook into the top loop and make a single crochet into the 2nd chain from the hook. And when I say we're going to insert our hook into the top loop, that means working under both strands of that top loop. So working into the 2nd chain from the hook, inserting our hook under both strands of that top loop. So I have 2 strands, and now we are going to single crochet. So that's our first single crochet made in the round. And in this pattern, we are always going to place a stitch marker in the top of that first stitch made. So we're going to insert this stitch marker or safety pin into the top of the stitch, meaning to go under the top loops so that the stitch marker's in the top of the stitch. And we're going to do this for the first stitch of every round to indicate which is the very first stitch made in the round. Now we are going to make single crochet stitches across the next 28 chains. So one single crochet in each of the next 28 chains. So we've made our first single crochet in the second chain from the hook. In the next chain, in the same place underneath the top 2 loops, we are going to single crochet. And that is our first of 28 that we're going to complete across all the chains to the end, except there'll be one chain left at the end when we work away all the way across. So that was one. Let's go to the next one. Under the top 2 loops, make our second of 28. And the next one will be the third. So you can go ahead and put me on pause and make 28 single crochet stitches in each chain across. You will have one chain left at the end. So you go ahead and do that. We'll come back and do that last part together. So I've just finished making 28 single crochet stitches. Now that did not include that first single crochet stitch we made, the one with the stitch marker in it. So that first one was actually the first single crochet stitch we made, and then we made 28. So we have 29 single crochet stitches so far. And at the end here, we have one last chain to work into, okay? Just to point out, there's the slip knot that we made. And we are going to work into this very last single, or this very last chain. And in that last chain, we are going to make 5 single crochet stitches into the same chain. So working into the same place under the top loops, insert your hook, and let's make our first single crochet stitch of 5. That's 1. I'm going to do 2, 3, always working in the same spot, 4, and 5. With these 5 single crochet stitches made in the last chain, you may notice a gap here, and it's okay. We can use these ends when we're finished to close that gap when we weave in our ends, so really don't worry about that. We're now going to be working along the other side of the chain, and we are going to be inserting our hook underneath the next space. Just be careful that you're not going to work into that same space that we've made our 5 single crochet stitches, going under the next space. So you can kind of see an X here, and there's a gap, and that's where we're going to insert our hook in single crochet. And just to point out before I put my hook back on, where the next space is, you see how there's a bit of an X here? So you go under that X and you'll see a gap space that you can work into. So we're going to be making 28 single crochet stitches into the other side of the chain all the way across until there's one chain left. So once again, don't work into this chain that we've already made our 5 into. We are going along the other side across the top and finding that next space, and we're going to single crochet into that next space. So we've made 1 single crochet there. So you can now see the difference between where I've made my single crochet stitch first compared to where we made the 5 before. Now moving to the next space, you can stretch your work a little bit to see where these gaps are, and working into the next space, we're going to single crochet. So that's 2 so far out of our 28. Moving into the next space, we're going to single crochet, so that's 3, and we're going to do this all the way across until there is 1 chain left. So go ahead and make 28 single crochet stitches across and then come back to the video. If you need to count, just remember that you've made 5 in the last chain from the other side, so those don't count. Your first one is the first single crochet you made on your own, and count that to start the 28 single crochet stitches on the other side. So go ahead, make 28 all the way across. There'll be 1 chain left, and we'll do that together. So after we made 5 single crochets in the last chain, from the other side, we've now made 28 single crochet stitches all the way across, and you should have 1 chain left. So where our stitch marker is, that's where we started. So there should be 1 last chain space to work into. And into that space, or the chain, we are going to make 2 single crochets in the same spot. So 1 and 2. And at this point, you can count your stitches, and you want to ensure that you have 64 stitches made in this round. So you're going to go count all the way around, make sure you have 64 stitches with the stitch marker being your first stitch, or the last stitch, however you're counting, but that's how you can see the difference between the last stitch and the first stitch. So make sure that you have 64 stitches in the round. And to finish round 1, we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch, the stitch with the stitch marker. So we can take that stitch marker out, just remembering exactly where that was. And we're going to slip stitch into the top of that first stitch. Slip stitch to join the round. To start round 2, we're going to chain 1. And we are not going to turn our work. So we are going to continue working in the exact same direction that we have been. We're not turning, we're not flipping, we're just going to continue working in the same direction. In this very first stitch, the stitch that's attached to the chain, we're going to make 2 single crochets into this first stitch. But in the first of 2, we're going to place that stitch marker. So let's do this just one at a time. So chain 1 into the first stitch, which is attached to this chain. We are going to make a single crochet stitch, and we're going to put our stitch marker into that first stitch, into the top, under the top loops. There we go. Now into the same stitch, we're going to make another single crochet stitch. So into the same first stitch, we make another one. Now we are going to single crochet in the next 29 stitches. Okay, so just across the next 29 stitches, make 1 single crochet in each. So that's 1 of 29, 2 of 29, 3 of 29. Keep going until you have 29 single crochet stitches and come back to the video. So I've just made 29 single crochet stitches, and that's not including the 2 single crochet stitches we made to start the round here. So our first stitch has a stitch marker in, then we made another stitch in the same place, and then we made 29. So we have actually 31 stitches made in the round so far. Now what we're going to do is make 2 single crochet stitches in the next 3 stitches. So 2 in the next, 2 in the one after that, and 2 in the one after that. So working into the next stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches in the same stitch, and then make 2 single crochet stitches in the next stitch, and 2 single crochet stitches in the next stitch. Now we are going to make a single crochet stitch in each of the next 29 stitches. So there's 1 of 29, 2 of 29, 3 of 29. And you go ahead and make 29 single crochet stitches and come back to the video. So after completing 29 single crochet stitches, you should have 2 stitches left. This next one here and the one after that. And these two are very, very confusing. And that's why it helps to always have a stitch marker here. This one attached to the first stitch was the chain 1 we made to start the round. And this stitch beside it is a slip stitch. So these aren't really stitches that we're ever going to be working into. So really you have 2 stitches left, and into these 2 stitches we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches and then another 2 single crochet stitches. So to finish the round, in the next stitch make 2 single crochet stitches, 1 and 2. And in the last stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches, 1 and 2. At the end of round 2, you should have a total of 70 stitches made. In this pattern, the chain 1 that we made to start does not count as a stitch, and neither did that slip stitch. So all we're doing is counting the single crochet stitches that we made all the way around, and you should have a total of 70 single crochet stitches all the way around. To complete the round, we are going to slip stitch into the very first single crochet stitch that we made, the one with the slips, the stitch marker. So we are going to take the stitch marker out, but remembering to note where that stitch was, and into the top of that stitch we are going to slip stitch to complete the round. At the end of round 2, your work should measure approximately 12.5 inches long and 1.5 inches wide. Now the size of your bag doesn't need to be exact. If it's slightly larger, if it's slightly smaller, it's absolutely okay. Now we're going to start round 3. And to start round 3, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to work into this very first stitch, the stitch that's attached to the chain. And into that first stitch, we are going to make 2 single crochet stitches. But once again, in that first single crochet stitch, we're going to put a stitch marker. So let's do this one step by step. Let's make 1 single crochet stitch into this first stitch. And pause here, put in our stitch marker. And in the same stitch, we're going to make another single crochet stitch. So make 2 single crochet stitches into that first stitch. And then we're also going to make 2 single crochet stitches into the next stitch. So working into the next stitch, make your first single crochet and your second. Now we're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in each of the next 30 stitches. So here's 1 of 30, 2 of 30, 3 of 30, and you're going to do this until you have a total of 30 single crochet stitches across. And just a reminder, that's not including the 2 single crochet stitches we made in the first 2 stitches. So count just from you're making 1 single crochet across the next 30 and come back to the video when you have 30 completed. With 30 single crochet stitches now completed, we're going to work into the next 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and into each of these we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches into each of the next 5 stitches. So for the next stitch, we're going to make 1 and then 2 single crochet stitches in the first of 5. And the next one, 1 and 2, that's 2 of 5, 1 and 2, that's 3 of 5, 1 and 2, that's 4 and 5 of 5, and then the last, the 5th stitch, 1 and 2. Now we're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in each of the next 30 stitches. So I think you've got the hang of this by now. That's 1 of 30, 2 of 30, 3 of 30. So go ahead, make 30 and come back to the video. With 30 single crochet stitches now complete, you should have 3 stitches left. And just a reminder of these confusing stitches. So we have the first stitch here, then we had the chain 1, and we have a slip stitch. The chain 1 and the slip stitch don't count as stitches. We're not working into those. So you're only working into the last 3 stitches. And in each of the last 3 stitches, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches in each of them. So in the next stitch, make 1 and 2 into the same stitch, into the next stitch, 1 and 2, and in the last stitch, 1 and 2. At the end of round 3, you should have a total of 80 stitches all the way around. And if you notice the bottom here is floppy, it's okay. I promise it'll straighten out as we expand on it. So yeah, count your stitches all the way around. Only count the single crochet stitches, not the chains. So your first stitch that you could count is the one with the stitch marker. That's stitch 1, and go all the way around to make sure you have 80 stitches in the round. And to complete round 3, slip stitch into the top of the first stitch made. So we'll remove the stitch marker and slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet stitch to complete the round. To start round 4, we're going to chain 1. And once again, we're never going to turn at the end of a round. The instructions for the beginning of this round are to make 2 single crochet stitches in the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch, and to repeat that twice, which means in the following stitch we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches, and in the next stitch 1 single crochet stitch. But let's do this step by step. In the first stitch, the stitch that's attached to the chain, we're going to make our first single crochet stitch, and into the first single crochet stitch, since it's the first stitch of the round, we're going to place our stitch marker. And now we're going to make another single crochet stitch into the same stitch. In the next stitch, we're going to make 1 single crochet stitch. And that completes the instructions a total of 1 once. And we're going to repeat those in total twice. So we've done 2 single crochet stitches in the next stitch, 1 single crochet stitch in the next. Let's repeat that again. So in the very next stitch, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches. 1 and 2. In the next stitch, we're going to make 1 single crochet stitch. Now we are going to single crochet in each of the next 30 stitches. So in the next stitch, we're going to make our first of 30 single crochet, then second of 30, third of 30, and you're going to go ahead and make a total of 30 single crochet stitches and then come back to the video. With 30 single crochet stitches now complete, so next what we're going to do is follow the following instructions a total of 5 times. And here are the instructions. In the next stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches. In the next stitch, make 1 single crochet stitch. And we're going to do that a total of 5 times. So in the next stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches. So 1 and 2. And in the next stitch, make 1 single crochet stitch. So that's 1 of 5 completed. Now 2 in the next stitch, 1 in the next. That's 2 of 5 completed. 2 in the next stitch, 1 in the next stitch. That's 3 of 5 completed. In the next stitch, 2 single crochet stitches complete. In the next one, 1, and that's 4 of 5 completed. In the next stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches, 1, 2, and finally make 1 single crochet stitch. So now we've just completed those instructions a total of 5 times. Now we're going to single crochet in each of the next 30 stitches. So here's 1 of 30, 2 of 30, and 3 of 30. So you go ahead and make 30 single crochet stitches and come back to the video. After making 30 single crochet stitches, you should have a total of 6 stitches left. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then this little one here is the slip stitch, and there's the chain one that we don't work into. So working into the last 6 stitches, we're going to be doing the same repeat instructions that we did early in the round, where in the next stitch we make 2 single crochets, in the next stitch 1 single crochet, and we're going to repeat that 3 times. So in the next stitch we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches. There's 1 and 2. In the next stitch, 1 single crochet. So that's the instructions that we've repeated once so far. Let's do it 2 more times. In the next stitch, single crochet twice in the same stitch. In the next stitch, make 1 single crochet. We have 2 stitches left. We're going to repeat this one last time. 2 single crochet stitches in the next stitch. And in the last stitch, we are going to make 1 single crochet stitch. At the end of round 4, you should have a total of 90 stitches all the way around. And that chain one does not count as a stitch. So counting from your first stitch, which is the one with the stitch marker, count to make sure you have 90 stitches. And to complete round 4, we're going to slip stitch into the top of the first stitch made. So we'll remove the stitch marker and slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet stitch to complete the round. At this point in the pattern, my work measures 14 inches long and 3 inches wide. Once again, it's okay if your bag is slightly different. It doesn't need to be exact. To start round 5, we are going to chain 1, and once again, we're not going to turn. The instructions for this round begin by following a set of instructions in brackets that we're going to repeat, And these instructions are to make 2 single crochet stitches in the first stitch and then make 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So 2 in the next stitch and then 1, 1. And we're going to repeat that a total of 2 times to start. Let's do this step by step. So in this first stitch, the stitch attached to the chain, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches, but on that first one, we're going to put our stitch marker into the top of that stitch, and then we're going to make another single crochet stitch into that same stitch. In the next stitch, we're going to make a single crochet stitch, just one, and in the next stitch, we're going to make 1 single crochet stitch. So that completes the instructions. In the brackets, a total of 1 time, or once so far. We're going to do that again. So in the next stitch, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches, 1, 2, and then we're going to make a single crochet stitch in each of the next 2 stitches, but just 1. So 1 in the next stitch and 1 in the next stitch. And that completes the set of instructions in brackets, a total of 2 times. Now we are going to single crochet in each of the next 30 stitches. So this is 1 of 30, 2 of 30, 3 of 30. So you go ahead and make 30 and come back to the video. Now we're going to follow the following instructions a total of 5 times. And here are the instructions. In the next stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches. In the next 2 stitches, make 1 single crochet stitch. And we're going to repeat that 5 times. So 2 in the next, and then 1 and 1. So let's do this together. In the next stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches, and then single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So that's 1 single crochet in the next and 1 single crochet in the next. So now we've repeated that set of instructions once. We're going to do it a total of 5 times. So in the next stitch, 2 single crochet stitches, and then 1 single crochet and 1 single crochet, and that's 2. When I say and that's 2 of 5 times that we're repeating those instructions. In the next stitch, 2 single crochet stitches. In the next stitch, 1 single crochet stitch. In the next stitch, 1 single crochet stitch. That's 3. In the next stitch, 2 single crochet stitches. In the next stitch, 1. In the next stitch, 1. That's 4. And the last time, in the next stitch, 2 single crochet stitches. In the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and in the next stitch, 1 single crochet. And that's repeating those instructions 5 times. Now we're going to make a single crochet stitch in each of the next 30 stitches. So I think you're an expert at this part by now. That was 1 of 30, 2 of 30, 3 of 30. Go ahead and make 30 and come back to the video. With our 30 single crochet stitches now complete, you should have a total of 9 stitches left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That slip stitch doesn't count and that chain 1 doesn't count. So into these next 9 stitches, we're going to repeat what we did earlier in the round. So in the next stitch, 2 single crochet stitches, and then a single crochet in the next and a single crochet in the next. And we're going to repeat that 3 times. So in the next stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches. In the next stitch, 1 single crochet stitch, and in the next stitch, 1 single crochet stitch. So that's once that we've repeated it. Let's do this again. 2 single crochet stitches in the same stitch, and then in the next stitch, 1 single crochet stitch, and in the next stitch, 1 single crochet stitch. So we have 3 stitches left. In the next stitch, 2 single crochet stitches in the next stitch. In the next stitch, 1 single crochet stitch, and in the very last stitch, 1 single crochet stitch. There we go. At the end of this round, you should have a total of 100 stitches made. We don't count the chains. So start with your stitch that has the stitch marker and make sure that you have 100 stitches all the way around. To finish the round, we're going to remove our stitch marker and slip stitch into the top of that first stitch. Slip stitch to join. And that completes round 5. To start round 6, we're going to chain 1. We never turn. In that first stitch, the stitch that's attached to the chain, we are going to single crochet. And we are going to place that stitch marker into that first stitch. And we are going to be making a total of 5 single crochet stitches to start, 1 in each stitch. And this first stitch that we just made counts as the first of those 5. So we've just made 1 single crochet stitch. We want to make a total of 5. So that's 1. In the next stitch, make another. That's 2. In the next stitch, make another. That's 3. In the next stitch, 4. And in the next stitch, 5. So now we have 5 single crochet stitches made. In the very next stitch, we are going to make 2 single crochet stitches into that next stitch. So 1, and then make another one in the same stitch, and that's 2. Now we're going to make a single crochet stitch in each of the next 36 stitches. So working across, just 1 in each stitch. In the next stitch, make 1. So that's 1 of 36. 2 will be 2 of 36. 3 is 3 of 36. So you go ahead and come back to the video when you have 36 single crochet stitches made. With our 36 single crochet stitches now complete, we're going to repeat the following instructions. I'll point out what we're doing here. In the next stitch, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches. And then we're going to make a single crochet stitch in each of the next 5 stitches. Hold on, did I do that right? So there's 2, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 single crochet in each of those next 5 stitches. And we're going to repeat those instructions a total of 3 times. So in the next stitch, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches. 1 and 2. Now we're going to make a single crochet stitch, just 1, in the next 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now we've repeated those instructions once. We're going to go do it 2 more times. In the next stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches, 1 and 2. Then make 1 single crochet stitch in each of the next 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we've repeated those instructions twice. We're going to do it once more. In the very next stitch, make 2 single crochet stitches, 1, 2. In the next 5 stitches, we're going to make 1 single crochet in each of those 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to single crochet in the next 34 stitches. So just working 1 single crochet into each of the next 34 stitches. So there's 1 of 34, 2 of 34, 3 of 34. Come back to the video when you have 34 stitches made. After making your 34 single crochet stitches, you should have a total of 6 stitches left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This little one here does not count as a slip, or does not count because that's a slip stitch, and there's the chain one. So with 6 stitches left, what we're going to do is in the next stitch, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches in the same stitch. So 1 and 2. And then we're going to single crochet in the next 4 stitches. So 1 single crochet in the next stitch, that's 1. In the next stitch, make another, that's 2. Next one, single crochet, that's 3. And in the next stitch, single crochet, and that's 4. Then we're going to skip the next stitch. So we're actually not going to work into anything else in this round. To count our stitches, we are going to make sure that there are 104 stitches all the way around. And again, start with the stitch with your stitch marker, don't count the chain, and just ensure you have 104 stitches. And to complete the round, we are going to remove the stitch marker from the first stitch and slip stitch into the top of that first stitch to join. So we're not doing anything else here. There's going to be a little bit of a gap, but it's going to be hardly noticeable. So now we're just going to slip stitch into the top of that stitch here. So you really can't see the gap. And that completes round 6. After round 6, my measurements are 16 inches long and 4 inches wide in the middle. The ends are a little wider at about 4.5 inches on both ends. To start round 7, we're going to chain 1, and once again, we are not going to turn. We're going to work into the first stitch, the stitch that's attached to the chain. And for this round, what we're going to be doing is single crocheting all the way around, but we're going to be working into the back loop only. So these are the loops, and if we only had 1 strand that we were working with, it would only be 1 loop, only the 1 back loop. But because we're working with 2 strands, we actually have 2 loops that we're going to be working under. We're going to insert a hook only under the 2 back loops, and we're going to single crochet normally. So we're ignoring this front loop. Like if we were just making a regular single crochet, we'd insert a hook under all the top loops. But for this round only, we're inserting our hook under the back loop only. And because there's 2 strands, it's the back loops. So we're going to insert a hook and single crochet into each back loop all the way around. So chain 1, we're not turning. Working into the very first stitch, we're inserting a hook under the back loop only, and now we're just single crocheting normally. Since this is our first single crochet stitch of the round, we're going to put our stitch marker in. And then we're going to do the exact same thing in the next stitch. Working in the back loops only, single crochet. See how I'm not touching the front loops, only working into the back loops and single crochet. So you're going to do this all the way around and come back to the video once you've single crocheted in the back loop only all the way around, and we will join the round together. So I've made my single crochet stitches at the back loops only all the way around, and I have 1 stitch left. And I wanted to point out what this looks like because it can get confusing. This here is my last stitch. The thing next to it is the slip stitch. Okay, so we're not going to work in that, and we're not working in the chain 1. So my last stitch here is this one, and I'm going to once again work into the back loops just like I've done all the way around. So make my single crochet into that. And at the end of this round, or if you're confused about which one's a stitch, count and make sure you have 104 single crochet stitches all the way around. So this is your first, and then your last one should be the last one that you just made, and that's 104. To complete the round, we are going to remove the stitch marker from the first stitch, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of that first stitch, but we are going to be working into both loops of that stitch. So for the whole round, we've been working into the back loops only, but from now on, for the rest of the pattern, we're working into both loops normally. So we're going to slip stitch by working into the top of that stitch under the all top loops, and then slip stitch. And that completes round 7. So this now completes the bottom of the bag. We are going to now start the bag body. We're not going to fasten off, but the round numbers are going to reset. So we're going to start back at round 1 as we start the bag body, just to make it easier to count the rounds for the body, the bag body, or the sides of the bag. Another thing I wanted to note is as you start to work on the bag body, you're going to notice that the top here, so this is the top that we've been working, this is the side that's been facing up this entire time as we've made the bottom. Well, what's going to happen as we start to work on the body is that this is actually going to be facing down. So it's going to be on the bottom outside of the bag. And how this is going to happen is you don't need to do anything. I'm just pointing this out. It's because we worked into the back loops. So that last round we did is really setting us up that we can now work on the body with this top from the bottom facing down. So don't worry, I'll show you exactly. I just wanted to point all this out. So now we are going to start the bag body. We're going to start round 1 of the bag body. The body of the beach bag uses a special joining technique called reverse slip stitch, which creates a straight seam that is hardly noticeable. Normally when working in the round, I would chain 1 and slip stitch into the first stitch made. And what this does is it creates a seam that's quite diagonal, and you can really see all the bumps that the seam and the joining creates. But in this pattern, what we're going to do is use a joining technique called the reverse slip stitch. And by doing this, we're going to create a seam that is just, it's hardly noticeable. So your work's going to look really nice by using this joining technique. Here is another example using the exact stitches that we're going to be using in the beach bag body. If I joined the normal way, which by chaining 1 and slip stitching, you can just again see how diagonal it is. You can really see the bumps. But what we're going to do is create a nice invisible join that you're hardly going to notice. Now I've just made a small swatch here to show you how to do the beach bag body. So I've just completed the last round of the bottom of the bag. So I've just slip stitched into the back loops all the way around and then joined with a slip stitch into both loops. So I'm ready to start the beach bag body. I'm still using the same color that I used for the bottom. This is my main color for this video tutorial. So still using your main color, what we're going to do is chain 1. But before we do anything, I just want to adjust our work so that we're working on the right side. I mentioned that the bottom top is going to be facing down, but I think at this point it's a good point to just adjust our work. You just kind of need to flip it out a little bit to make sure that bottom is now facing down. My tails are on the inside of my bag now, and so I'm ready to start round one, and the outside of my work is facing me. So it's a good idea to do this now, as it can get confusing a little later. So to start round one, we are going to chain one. We are not going to turn, and just a reminder to never turn unless instructed to. And the first thing we're going to do is single crochet. The first thing we'll do is single crochet in this first stitch, but the instructions are going to tell us for this round to single crochet in each stitch around. But we're going to make our first single crochet stitch into the stitch that's attached to the chain. So into this first stitch, we're going to single crochet. And now we're going to put a stitch marker into the top of that first stitch, because we're going to do that in every round. Always put a stitch marker in the top of the first stitch made in the round. And now we're going to single crochet in each stitch around. Just normal single crochet stitches under both loops, nothing special, one single crochet in each stitch around. At the end of the round, you should have a total of 104 single crochet stitches. So you go ahead and do that and come back to the video when you have 104 single crochet stitches completed. So I'm nearing the end of the round. I have one stitch left. This thing here is the slip stitch, and here's the chain one. We don't work into either of those, so I have one last stitch, and if I was not doing a full swatch, this would be my 104th stitch. So your last stitch should be your 104th stitch. And now the instructions say to join with a reverse slip stitch. So here is how to do it. After your very last stitch, which is your 104th stitch, you're simply going to tug your hook a little bit so that you can remove your hook from your yarn, leaving the loop as is. Next, you're going to remove the stitch marker from the first stitch, but make note just visually of where that is because this is the stitch that we're going to be working into. So take off your stitch marker, but just keep a close eye on that stitch so you know where to work into. Then you're going to take your crochet hook and you're going to insert the hook from the back to the front. Let me just point out exactly what we're doing here. We're going to insert our hook into this first stitch from the back to the front under all the loops, okay? And then we're going to pick up this loop of yarn and we're going to place it on our hook. So working into this first stitch, we take our hook, inserting it from back to front, picking up our loop and placing it on our hook, and then pulling the loop that's on our hook through our work from front to back all the way through. Now we simply tighten up our yarn and we're going to work directly into this first stitch when we start the next round. So that's how you do a reverse slip stitch. That completes round one, and now we're going to start round two. And round two is a round that we're going to be repeating lots throughout the pattern. So definitely pay attention to this round. So now we've done a reverse slip stitch. What we're going to do for round two is single crochet in each stitch around. Because we've done a reverse slip stitch, we are no longer going to chain. and we're not going to turn unless the pattern tells us to. But in round 2, it does not tell us to turn. It just simply says to single crochet in each stitch around. That means to work into the very first stitch, the stitch that we just did the reverse slip stitch into. So into this first stitch, we're going to single crochet. And you can loosen up your yarn if you need to, because it can get really, really tight. So you can keep this part nice and loose. Feel free to adjust to make sure you have lots of yarn to work with, but we're just going to single crochet normally into this first stitch. Because it's the first stitch of the round, we're going to place a stitch marker into the top of that stitch. And now we're going to single crochet in each stitch around. At the end, you should have 104 single crochet stitches completed. So come back to the video when you have 104 single crochet stitches completed, and we'll finish the round together. So I'm nearing the end of the round. I have 1 stitch left. This is going to be my 104th single crochet stitch. You can kind of see the slip stitch now, the reverse slip stitch that we did, but it's getting a little more hidden. It's going to get even harder to see as we move on. So make sure to count your stitches and know that your last stitch should be your 104th single crochet stitch. So I'm going to make my last stitch here, and the instructions for the round say to join with a reverse slip stitch. So what we do is we remove our hook from our work, leaving the loop as is, remove our stitch marker from the top of that first stitch, but making a note of it because that's exactly where we're going to be working into. Take our hook, insert our hook into the top both loops of that first stitch, and it can get really tricky. So just making sure you know exactly where to work into, under the back 2 loops and under the front 2 loops. You're going to insert your hook into that first stitch, and it can get quite tight. Take your time on this one, and just making sure your hook comes from the front or from the back to the front. So with my hook inserted into this first stitch, I'm going to pick up my loop and place it on my hook and pull it through my work. Now I just tighten up my yarn, readjust. And again, feel free to play around with this so that it's not too tight. You have enough yarn to work into this first stitch. And that completes round 2. So for rounds 3 to 7, you're simply going to be doing the same thing that we just did in round 2. You're going to work into this very first stitch, place a stitch marker, then single crochet in each stitch around and join the round with a reverse slip stitch. So you go ahead and do rounds 3 to 7 and come back when it's time to start round 8. So to start round 8, the first thing we're going to do is change colors. And I've labeled the colors in this pattern. This is what I'm calling the bottom stripe, the middle stripe, and the top stripe. And by all means, you're welcome to use the same color for all 3. I think that would actually look really nice. If you do that, please send me pics. I can't wait to see it. But just so you can tell the difference between I'm using this blue in the bottom stripe, the green in the middle stripe, and this pinkish color, pink purple, for the top stripe. So you get whatever color you'd like for the bottom stripe, and we're going to change colors. So you've just finished round 7. I didn't go all the way till round 7 because it's exactly the same as what I've just completed, so I can easily show you exactly what to do. But we're starting round 8, and so round 8 says to change to the bottom stripe color. So for this video tutorial, I'm using the same color that I used in the actual pictures. I'm using this blue, and I'm going to now attach and attach it to my work and change colors. So we've just finished the round 7 with a reverse slip stitch. So I'm going to put my hook back into my current color and just tighten it up here. Now I'm going to take my new color, and I'm simply going to, there's 2 strands, because we're working with 2 strands the entire pattern, and we're going to put the new color directly on our hook. And now I'm just going to pull the new color through the loop of my current color. And I'm going to pull, now this is my old color. So the main color I'm going to pull tight and pull my new color tight too. So it's just nice and secure on my hook. Now I debated whether we should fasten off or if you can leave your yarn hanging over and over and over again. So the safest thing to do is to fasten off. I think that's going to give your inside of the bag a much nicer finished inside. And I know it's the inside of the bag, but I still would love for it to look nice. So I do recommend you fasten off your old color. And I'm sorry for the extra ends you have to weave in, but it does look much nicer if you don't have that color hanging in the inside of your bag. And also things could get caught in it, so you are just safer to fasten off. And by fastening off, I just simply mean to cut the yarn, leaving an approximate 8-inch tail that you'll use to weave in the ends to the inside of your bag. So now we've changed to our bottom stripe color, and anytime you see in the instructions to change to the middle stripe color or top stripe color, you just do the exact same thing that we're doing in this round. So we've attached our new color, and we're simply going to single crochet in each stitch around. So we're going to work directly into the first stitch, the stitch that is attached to our work right now, into this first stitch. And just, you may need to pull everything tight just to make sure it's nice and secure. We're simply going to single crochet. See how it's a little loose? I'm just going to tighten everything up. Tighten up my main color, which is the old color, tighten up the new color. And now we've just changed colors and we've single crocheted in that first stitch. And we're going to put a stitch marker into the top of that stitch. I'm just going to tuck all my ends inside here so that they don't get in the way. Now for the rest of the round, we're simply going to single crochet in each stitch around. So you go ahead, come back to the video. When you've single crocheted in each stitch around, you should have 104 single crochet stitches completed. So after making 104 single crochet stitches, we're going to join with a reverse slip stitch. So I'm removing my hook, removing the stitch marker to work into that first stitch, inserting my hook from back to front, placing my loop onto my hook and pulling it through, adjusting my yarn, and that completes round 8. Round 9, we are going to repeat round 2. So we're going to single crochet in each stitch around. Remember to place a stitch marker in the top of that first stitch and join with a reverse slip stitch. Then come back to the video and we'll do round 10 together. Now we're going to start round 10. And for round 10, we are going to turn our work. But I want to show you something before we turn. See how if I pull this apart a little bit, this is from the reverse slip stitch. This is the yarn that's going through the reverse slip stitch. If I pull it tight, you can hardly see it there. If I loosen it, it gets a little looser here. So why I'm showing you this here. So look, when I pull tight, you can hardly see it. If I loosen it, it almost looks like a stitch. We are not going to work into this because it's not a stitch. So once we turn our work, just make sure you're not working in this stitch here, because it's not a stitch, it's just the yarn from the reverse slip stitch. When we turn our work, we're going to work into this stitch first, but just one step at a time. I just thought it was easier when I show you this way before we turn. All right, so I'm just tightening up my yarn here. So to start round 10, we are going to turn. So when you turn, your yarn could be in front of your work like this, and then you just want to put it to the back of your work so you can work into the right stitch, or your yarn might be over here after you turn, and then you would work into this first stitch. Wherever it is, it's okay. It doesn't really make much of a difference. In that first stitch, we are going to slip stitch very loosely. So I'm going to, you can adjust your yarn if you need to, just to make sure you have enough yarn to work with. Also, it really doesn't matter too much what your yarn's doing here. So I turned, and now my yarn's at the back of my work here. It's okay, don't worry, it'll all look good. Into this first stitch, we're going to slip stitch loosely. So inserting my hook, pull up my yarn and pull my yarn through my loop on my hook. But I'm not pulling very tight. Now this is our first stitch in the round, and so we're going to place a stitch marker into the top. Oh, I'll fix that. Into the top of that first slip stitch. That counts as our first stitch of the round. In the very next stitch, we are going to half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull that yarn through all three loops on our hook. In the next stitch, we're going to slip stitch loosely. And I can't stress the loosely part enough. You can make it very, very loose. In the next stitch, half double crochet. And we're going to do this all the way around. So you go ahead and repeat this all the way around. Slip stitch loosely in the next stitch, half double crochet in the next stitch. And repeat that all the way around and come back to the video. So I'm nearing the end of the round. I have 2 stitches left. My last stitch was a half double crochet, so in the next stitch I'm going to slip stitch loosely, and in the very last stitch I'm going to half double crochet. At the end of the round you should have a total of 104 stitches. So your first slip stitch counts as the first stitch, and that last half double crochet stitch counts as the last stitch, and there should be a total of 104 stitches. And we're going to finish the round by joining with reverse slip stitch. So we're going to join with reverse slip stitch the exact same way. The only difference is we're working into the slip stitch that we made to start the round. So you're going to work into the slip stitch by inserting your hook into the slip stitch from back to front, and then we're going to put the loop on our hook. And then put the loop onto the hook and pull the yarn through that slip stitch. And that completes round 10. One quick note about round 10 is these slip stitches and half double crochet stitches, you may find that this round, whenever we do these half double crochet slip stitches, alternating technique, you might find it caves in a little bit or folds in right at this round. I found that as soon as I attached the straps to the inside of the bag, it no longer folded in. But just a word of warning, especially as you get to do this again for the middle stripe or the top stripe, you might find that. But I did find it was fixed at the end once the straps were attached. So to start round 11, we are going to turn. And once again, it's okay if your yarn is in the front of your work. See how my yarn is coming around my hook like that? I found it was absolutely fine to do that. Or if you feel like adjusting, you can adjust your yarn so it's just right to the back. I truly didn't feel like it made much of a difference. So I just want to take a moment and show you these stitches that we're going to be working into to ensure that you're working into the right place. Now, these aren't special stitches. We're not working into the back loops or front loops. It's just because we've turned, it can be tricky to know where we should work into for this round. So if you can see here, I'm calling them little waves. These are the waves created from the half double crochet stitches and from alternating between slip stitches and half double crochet stitches. These waves are technically side loops, okay? They should be on the front of our work, and we do not work into these. Treat these as the side stitches that don't get worked into. Where we're going to be working into is into the tops of the stitches from the previous round. So the first stitch that we're going to be working into is the first half double crochet stitch, which was the last half double crochet stitch that we completed. So when looking at the stitch, you'll see the wave here, and we don't work into that wave. We work into the tops of the stitches. So I found it much easier to rotate the work so it's really facing us directly. And then you can really see that these are the tops of the stitches. This is the front loop, that's the back loop, and because we're working with 2 strands, these are the front loops, these are the back loops, and we'll be working into the tops of these stitches, not into the side part of the stitches, which should be on the outside of our work. So the first stitch we'll work into is by inserting a hook under the top loops and working directly into that last half double crochet stitch. So working into the top of that half double crochet, we're just going to single crochet. And since it's the first stitch of the round, we are going to put our stitch marker in the top of that stitch. You know you've done it right when you've got this almost wave shape in front. That's what we want. We want these little waves to always be in the front facing us. We don't want to work into those. So for the next stitch, which is the slip stitch from the previous round, we're going to single crochet into it. I just find it's easier if you need to rotate your work so it's like this to face you, and now you can really see the top of this slip stitch from the previous round. This is where we're going to work into, under the tops of the front loops and the back loops. This is where we're going to insert our hook and single crochet, not into the front part here, okay? So into the top of the slip stitch, we're going to single crochet. Into the top of this half double crochet, we're ignoring this little wave, and we're going to insert our hook under the tops of this stitch here and single crochet. Same with the slip stitch. The next slip stitch, inserting a hook under these loops, not touching anything here. I hope that helps. So under the top of the slip stitch, we're single crocheting. And we're going to do this all the way around. So just make sure you're not working into the fronts of the stitches, but into the tops of the stitches. And just single crochet normally all the way around. you should have a total of 104 single crochet stitches at the end of the round. Once you have 104 stitches, come back to the video. And maybe I'll just pause and just make sure what I was saying earlier is clear. Do you see how there's these little waves? I did not work into those, so those waves are showing on the outside of my work here. At the end of round 11, the last stitch can be so tricky because we've turned, we're working in slip stitches. Don't worry too much. What you want to ensure is that you have 104 single crochet stitches completed. So with the first single crochet stitch as the first stitch, and then count all the way around. And if you need to add one right here at the end as your 104th, that's okay. We just want to make sure we have 104 stitches to get back into our normal way of repeating the rounds. Now that we've done our special round, we're going to go back to working in the same direction, repeating round 2 over and over again. Let me just finish round 11 really quick by doing a reverse slip stitch. And with that reverse slip stitch made, that completes round 11. So we've just completed round 11. So to point out visually where you are, you've just finished the single crochet round after this special round of round 10, where we alternate between half double crochets and slip stitches. So you've just done the round of single crochet after that, which is round 11. And the rest of the rounds is a repeat of what we've just done in the video. So head on over to the written instructions and you can then re-watch. It's going to tell you to repeat round 2 or repeat round 10 or everything that we've done. You've now seen it visually through this video. So I'm not going to go and do the whole beach bag because you can just re-watch any of the rounds that we've just covered. And then once you've finished the top, come back to the video and we will do the straps together. So after you've finished round 37 of the beach bag body, you're going to fasten off and weave in all your loose ends. Just weave them into the side of the bag here. And then now we're going to start the straps. And the straps are made to match the colors of your stripes so that it looks nice on the inside. As you can see here, for my strap, I started with my bottom stripe color, and I used the bottom stripe color for a number of rows. We're now changing to rows because we're just going to go back and forth. And then I switched to my main color, and then the middle stripe color, the main color, the top stripe color. And then I used the main color for the majority of the strap. And then I do the exact same thing at the end of the strap to match the colors of the bag. So in the written instructions, it's going to have every time you need to change colors, which color to use. And I wanted to show you visually what this looks like when the strap is finished. So let's begin the strap, and we're going to start with the bottom stripe color. So I've used blue, so I'm going to start with blue. One really quick note before we begin is that each time we attach a new color, we are going to leave an 8-inch tail that we're going to use to attach the strap to the inside of the bag. And this is the inside of the bag. I've turned it inside out. So every time we're going to start by leaving an 8-inch tail that we're going to use to attach the strap to the inside of the bag. So always leave a starting 8-inch tail and an ending 8-inch tail, because you're going to use those tails to attach the strap. There's only one time that that's a little different, and that's when we change to the main color on row 22. So after you finish doing the strap top stripe color, then we use the main color for a long time. Okay, so we use it for a long time. And it's at this point we want to leave, I'm going to say, a 24-inch tail approximately, just a little longer because you have more strap to attach. So leave a longer tail for this part that you'll use to attach this main color to inside of the bag on both sides. So a starting tail for this part, we're going to leave 24 inches, and same with the ending tail for the main color. And then when you get back to using these colors here, you can just leave an 8-inch tail. And this is all in the written instructions. I just wanted to again point this all out visually. So with my bottom stripe color, once again, we're still using 2 strands of yarn for the whole pattern, and the same hook. We are going to chain 7. Just make sure that you've left a long 8-inch tail. So we're going to start by making a slip knot and putting our slip knot onto our hook. Again, making sure you have a long 8-inch tail. Using our bottom stripe color, we're going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In the second chain from the hook, so that's the first chain, that's the second. In the second chain from hook, we're going to single crochet. And we're going to single crochet in each chain across. In the last chain here, single crochet. So you should have a total of 6 single crochet stitches now complete. Now we're going to begin row 2. And row 2 is what you're going to be doing for the rest of the strap. The only thing that's going to be different is when you change colors, but the same thing, you're going to do the exact same thing for the rest of the strap. So for row 2, first thing we're going to do, just tightening everything up here, we're going to chain 1 and turn. Working into the very first stitch, the stitch that's attached to that chain 1 that we just made, the very first stitch, we're going to single crochet. We're going to single crochet in each stitch across. So simply make a single crochet in each stitch. Every row has the exact same number of stitches. You should have a total of 6 single crochet stitches complete at the end of every row. The chain 1 that we made to start the row does not count as a stitch. So only count the 6 single crochet stitches that we made. So you're going to repeat this with the bottom stripe color for rows 3, 4, and 5. Do the exact same thing. At that point, your work should measure approximately 2.5 inches wide, and the width doesn't matter as much as the height, because as I showed you before, we want the strap to match the stripe on the inside of the bag. So we want that height to be approximately the same height so that it matches. You're welcome to adjust the rows if you need to, but because of how the bag body was, this should match, and it's okay if it's a little off. So follow the written instructions, and you're going to be doing this for the whole strap, but let me just quickly show you what happens when we need to change colors. So when you get to row 6, for example, it says to change to main color. So what that means is, so I still have my bottom stripe color here on my hook. Now I'm going to attach my main color, which this is the main color that I've used in this video tutorial. I'm simply going to place the 2 strands on my hook and pull it through the loop of my current color, and then pull everything tight. Now remember, we always leave an 8-inch tail when starting or finishing. So when I go to fasten off my bottom stripe color, anytime I'm changing colors, I'm going to leave an approximate 8-inch tail. The only time that's different is when we get to row 22, we are going to leave a longer tail. So make sure to follow those written instructions and leave the right amount of yarn so that you have enough yarn to attach the strap to the inside of the bag. And then simply, now that I have my new color on my hook, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and then single crochet in each stitch across. So I worked into the first stitch and then make a single crochet in each stitch across. Once again, I will have a total of 6 single crochet stitches at the end of every row. So hopefully that helps you learn how to do the strap. Follow those written instructions where it's going to tell you exactly when to change colors, how many rows to do. It'll remind you when you need to leave that extra long tail. It's not going to tell you to leave an 8-inch tail every other time, because that's just a given. It's only on that special rows when we're working with the main color that you're going to leave that extra long tail. And so follow the instructions, work on this strap, and then after you finish the strap, leave all these tails out, because we're going to use these to attach the strap to the inside of the bag. But you're going to want to make 2 straps in total. And then come back to the video and I'll show you how to attach the strap. So once your straps are complete, you can turn your bag inside out. The straps get attached to the inside of the bag. And you're going to place them so that the colors line up. And the strap should be approximately 4 inches away from the end of the bag. So place one down, make sure, let me just fold this so you can see, make sure that the straps are not twisted. You want it to be going completely around without any twisting. So then place the other end of the same strap on the other side of the bag, approximately 4 inches from the side. I don't think this is folded right, so mine is 4 inches from the side of the bag on either side. And then you're going to take all those ends and simply attach it to the inside of the bag only. We don't want yarn coming through the front of the bag. So when you're attaching the strap to the inside of the bag, you're only working into loops that is in the side facing you. You don't want the yarn to go through the front of the bag. So only working into the loops that are closest to you. Just simply weave in the yarn to the inside of the bag all the way around so the straps are good and secure. And what's great is you can really tuck the extra ends underneath the straps, in between the strap and the inside of the bag here. That's where all my ends, most of them are hidden away. No one will see those, and you'll still have a lovely inside of your bag. It'll look lovely on the inside of your bag. And then same with the main color here, you're just going to work all the way around, attaching the strap securely to the inside of the bag. And then you're going to do that on both sides. Once your straps are attached and the ends are tucked away or they're woven in, turn your bag back inside out, and ta-da! Now you have a brand new crochet beach bag. That completes this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed making this beach bag. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see your finished beach bags. If there's anything at all I can do to help, please let me know. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.